Yunus Yoon reporting there from Beijing. Now, the Cellular Operators Association of India has urged the Telecom Department to impose usage charges on OTT players and apps. The COAI has argued the telecom companies are entitled to such payments by OTT platforms as they provide infrastructure that these apps rely on. Ashmit Kumar joins us now with more. Ashmit, this is a really old demand that had played itself out, and it finds its way back into the recommendations that the COAI has sent to the government.
Well, that's right. The telecom companies, through their representative body, the COAI, have written a letter to the DoT whereby essentially they're seeking is that the infrastructural costs that these companies have to undertake, that telecom companies have to undertake, must also be borne by OTT in part. Now, what does that exactly mean? What that means is that telecom companies, by way of this letter, are seeking for an arrangement where the OTT players, that's the likes of Netflix, Uber, Zomato, the likes of WhatsApp, they start paying the telecom companies for the data that their respective application uses. The rationale, the argument that has been put forth by the telecom companies in this letter is that, look, they're the ones setting up the infrastructure, and as the company responsible for setting up the infrastructure, they will be well within their rights to seek some form of fair share compensation from these OTT players. Not just that, the letter also cites examples of countries such as France, Italy, Spain, the EU as a whole, also the United States, which are beginning to talk about some form of legislation or a legal framework that will allow for this exchange of transfer or compensation flowing from the OTT players to the telecom companies. So towards that end, what they're seeking essentially is a charge called the usage charge to be levied on these OTT players. That's part one. They're seeking for this charge to be determined between the two sides, OTT players and the telecom companies, and in case there is no settlement between the two sides, in that case they're seeking for a legal framework that will allow the center to determine what this ideal usage charge could be like, and most importantly, they're seeking for all of this to be incorporated as a part of the upcoming telecom bill. So that's an interesting argument being made here. We're yet to see how the DoT, how the center chooses to respond to this argument coming in from the telecom industry.
Ashmit, many thanks. In fact, staying with that story, India's telecom industry has seen data usage rise more than fivefold in the last 5 years, but the increase in revenue is 40%. What explains this? Rima joins us now with more. Rima.
Data usage by you, me and everyone has seen an unprecedented increase. It's increasing exponentially. Just take a look at this data. The monthly data usage from 2017 to 2021 has roughly gone up by 5.5 times. So one would assume that telecom companies which provide this data and charge for it would be making money. The answer is yes and no. Yes, telecom industry revenues are going up, but it's not going up linearly. In the last 5 years, the telecom industry revenues are up just 40%, while the data volume or the data usage has gone up 550%. The reason for the stark difference is that telecom companies are offering you bundled packs, and many of the popular packs provide 1 to 1.5 GB of data per day, and most of us don't consume that. So assume I was consuming 300 MB of data per day. Even if I increased it 3x, it goes to 900 MB per day. Or even if my data usage goes up 5x to 1.5 GB per day, it still falls within my allowance, which means the telecom company has not made incremental revenue from me, despite my data usage going up so significantly. That explains why in the last 5 years, the data usage or data volumes have gone up 5.5 times, but the data industry revenues have only gone up 40%. So how can industry revenues increase from here on? Operators need to take more price hikes. So the ARPU, and this we're using Bharti Airtel's ARPU as a reference, before Jio was closer to 200 rupees. It fell to a trough of 100 rupees. It practically halved, and only now has it slowly started limping back to pre-Jio levels. This is the latest number, Q2 FY23. And this is on the back of that 40% price hike that we've seen in the last 3 years. But despite that, India's ARPU is still amongst the lowest in the world.
All right, Rima, many thanks for joining us. We will head into a short break, but up next, Elon Musk feuds with Apple, accuses the tech giant of trying to censor the platform by pausing advertising. That and more when we return.